we talk about sacrifice a lot. Like, what are you
Yeah.
willing to give up? But how much are you willing to endure?
Every great quarterback in the NFL, they all have the same exact story. They're never superstars in high school. They're never the best athlete. They're never the golden boy. When you hit a boxer who's unseasoned, not used to being hit, and you hit him in the face, and they go like this, oh, wait a second, I didn't sign up for this. And now they're doing this, and you're punching them again. That's what our world looks like now. You don't have to fall in love with it feels good, because it doesn't feel good. You have to fall in love with that grind that no one else will do.
Welcome back to another episode of the Athletics of Business podcast. I am your host and CEO of the Molitor Group, Ed Molitor. I am thrilled to welcome back today's special guest, Bo Eason, for the second time since we've launched the Athletics of Business podcast, which seems like 1,000 years ago. Bo first joined us on episode 53. If you have not listened to that episode, or even if you have, I encourage you to go back and listen to it. There is so much there. It was right around the time his book, There's No Plan B for Your A Game, launched, where it talks about being the best in the world at what you do. And we'll talk about that whole mindset and that execution here today inside this episode as well. Bo started his career in the NFL as a top pick for the Houston Oilers, continued on with the San Francisco 49ers during his 5-year career until a career-ending injury altered the course of what life would look like for him. Now, in 2001, Bo wrote and starred in his one-man play, Run to the Litter, which he performed on Broadway to rave reviews. And the New York Times called it one of the most powerful plays in the last decade. Now, the reason it was so powerful, because that play was written, Bo wrote that about his life. And again, a one-man show on stage in Broadway, absolutely crushed it. And he shares a really cool story about Al Pacino inside of this episode. Now, in his third act, Bo speaks to and trains some of the most successful people in the world, whether they be athletes, artists, entrepreneurs, C-suite executives, on how to communicate for maximum impact and success. He has consulted for clients like Advisors Excel, Morgan Stanley, Dimensional Fund Advisors, Mass Mutual, Guardian, Merrill Lynch, just to name a few. We're going to talk about an incredible event he has coming up here in a few months that takes place in La Jolla, California. So be sure to hang on towards the end of the episode, where we'll talk about his 3-day personal story power event. And we spend a lot of time talking about why your personal story is so important when it comes to building meaningful relationships and the people that you sell to, the people that you work with the people that you lead, and why your personal story isn't just about ending up at the top of Mount Everest, so to speak, but it's about the journey and what you endured to get there. So I'm going to get out of the way. This is just an incredible conversation. Bo is one of the most genuine, giving human beings that I know. So I hope that you enjoy this conversation half as much as I did recording it. Oh, welcome back. Thank you so much for joining us again on the Athletics of Business podcast. Despite how crazy and chaotic our world is, all is right for the next 45 minutes because we have you in studio. Thank you, Bo.
That's nice, Ed. Thank you. Thanks for, I love coming back on.
It's been a heck of a run for you. You know, I think you identify now as being in your third act. And before we jump into that, I have to ask you, right? We first had you on an episode 53, which seems like a lifetime ago. A lot of things have occurred since then in both of our lives, but it's been amazing for me to watch your family grow and the impact that the way you did things when you were younger, right? Creating that 20-year vision when you're a 9-year-old and want to be the best free safety in the game. But to see how that's impacted your children. How is the family doing? I love getting the Christmas card every year. It's awesome. But how is everybody doing, Bo?
They're amazing. It's so funny. I see parents like wanting their kids to go off to college and like getting down on their knees and going, finally, we're alone in the house and we're empty nesters and, they're off to college. I'm like, I feel the opposite. Like I'm trying to hang on to them as much as I can. And my oldest daughter is over in London and she's studying abroad and just doing amazing stuff. And then my son, Axel, he's going to be the quarterback at UC Davis next year. He committed there.
Oh, but that leads me to two questions, and we'll get to the third child in a second here. But as a girl dad, she's only in 7th grade, right? I'm trying to slow down time, like you said.
Yeah.
But how is that, having a daughter studying abroad? I mean, how are you sleeping at night?
I know. It's not easy. A lot of texts going back and forth. She's studying a lot of the stuff. She's studying English, but so they're traveling around and they're going to where Shakespeare wrote this play, or Shakespeare did his play here in this particular theater, and they're watching shows in that theater. So she's doing a lot of the stuff that I wished I did and kind of did here in the States when I was going, when I was writing a play and opening in New York and all that kind of stuff, doing plays. So she's doing that now. So I'm kind of living vicariously. But you know what? Here's the great part. Because I married a gal who is so hard-headed and just driven, like
I was going to go with amazing. But
amazing,
okay,
yeah. You can go with amazing. It's probably better for you and me. But, Dawn, my wife, is just, she's kind of unstoppable female, moved to Milan, Italy when she was like 17 to model and to act, and lived in New York City alone when she was that age, 17, 18 years old, and could really handle herself. And Eloise, our oldest, she's a lot like Dawn in that way. They get what they want. They don't take any crap from anybody. They're not pushovers. So I feel pretty good about that. You'll face that, here coming up pretty soon when they go off. So you just want to make sure that, look, I just remember this one thing, Ed. It's funny you asked that, because I remember when we were young parents and we had little kids, right? The kids were little. I remember Dawn pulling up in front of a sandwich shop or a coffee shop and telling the kids to get out of the car and go in and order this and order that and pay them and then come back and get back in the car. And they would go, well, I don't know how to do that, Mom. Won't you come in with me? And she would go like this. No, you go in. You handle it. And so my kids, since they were really young, like too young, I wasn't forced to do this at that age, walking into a coffee shop going, can I get a double latte and a sandwich with this nut on it? And then learn how to take care of the people working there and handle things. And I remember sitting there in the car going like this, Don, they're too young to go in there. You shouldn't have them do that. I never did that at that age, but she made them do it. And now I understand why. Now they're older. Now they're out there in the world, handling stuff. They know how to book a hotel and travel to that city and stay in that hotel. I'm like, really? That was all taken care of for me when I was an athlete. I don't even know how to do that stuff today. But my kids do. So there's one tip for you.
It's funny you say that, because that's discussions here that we have all the time. But speaking of athletes, now Axel follows in Dad's footsteps to UC Davis, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's where things really changed for you. What was the recruiting process? And we'll jump into the other stuff here in a second, but I'm so curious. What was that like for you? Like, how did you know where to step in? You and Dawn know where to not step in, to let him experience it, let him process it all. And what was that feeling internally when he said, Dad, I'm going to UC Davis?
Yeah. That moment that he said he was going to go to UC Davis, because he was being recruited. So he was going all over the country, being recruited by some big time schools. And that moment I was actually shocked, because I didn't really think about him going there. I just didn't. And even though I had a lot of success there and my roommates had a lot of success there, I just didn't think about him going there. Anyway, when he did tell me, I was on a Zoom call with clients, like I'm coaching them on a Zoom call, like you and me are doing right now. I knew he had a meeting with the head coach at UC Davis. I knew the coach was coming out to see him throw. I couldn't be there because I'm on this call. And I looked down at my phone and it's a text from Axel saying that Coach Plow offered him a scholarship. I swear, Ed, this has never happened to me before, because usually I don't even have my phone there, right? But I just saw it. And then Axel called. And as I'm picking up the phone and I'm telling my clients, you guys, can you hold on for 1 second? And they're like, cool, because they know the story, right? They know Axel.
Part of it's pretty cool too as your client, right?
Yeah.
Let's not kid ourselves. Yeah.
Yeah. And I answer the phone and Axel tells me how it went. that he just offered me a scholarship there, I just start bawling my head like a baby in front of my client. The coaching session's still going, right? And afterwards, we hung up. I was so happy. I had to pull myself together. And my clients were like, I apologized to them for taking something personal without them, and they got to see it. And they go, that was the best coaching you've ever had, Bo, because we got to see in real time kind of how you handle that situation and how you celebrate that situation or are surprised by it. Anyway, that recruiting process was really cool because me and my brother, even though we're top picks in the NFL, we didn't get recruited. So no colleges recruited us. So we didn't know how it even went. But in today's world, the whole recruiting process, it's like a social media game, which we're not very strong at. Like we always tell Axel, me and my brother, coaches Axel a lot at the position. And we always say, God, our Instagram game is not great. But lucky for us, the position of quarterback is played on a field with grass under your feet. So we're good at that, but we're not so good at promoting that. You know what I mean? So most of Axel's, peers in the quarterback world are really good on Instagram or Twitter or whatever it is. And we call them Instagram quarterbacks because they're really good on Instagram. But as soon as a 350-pound lineman hits you in the face, not so good on Instagram, right? Yeah. Now you got to do what we've been training Axel for, which is the grass under your feet in those real positions where you're getting smacked in the face. So the whole recruiting process was like first time for me going through it. And so it was fun. I mean, they really take care of you and they really, they let us sit in on quarterback meetings and watch the film and watch practice. So it was really cool going through that with him. And I basically just backed off and let him kind of go through it. I would always give him my feedback, I like the way this coach, what he saw in you. I like this guy's philosophy of this position called quarterback. I would give my feedback and my brother would give his feedback, but we wouldn't be making, decisions. We would give our feedback, but that was it. Anyway, so it was fun. The game is different now. I played in pro football in the 80s, so I played high school and college during the 70s and 80s, so the game is a lot different. I like our way of playing it better, just so you guys know. I do. I think it's a better game. I think the more you try to regulate something, the worse it gets. I think it just hurts the sport, the nature in which the sport was intended to be played. So football, in this case, was invented for this certain way to play this game. And now they're so far away from that, the intent of which the game was invented to be played in the first place, that it's become now mostly about the regulations and the officials. And I just think that's not a good look.
Takes away from the integrity of the game. But speaking of different, each child is so unique, right? And then there's Lila, who I believe is a sophomore, and volleyball is her thing.
Yep.
How has she navigated her way with having a sister at Colgate who's a cheerleader and now studying abroad, and a brother who is a football stud? And here she is, this beautiful young woman finding her way. What's that been like?
You know what? She benefits from the bloody noses that the older two went through, right? Like she sees where they stepped in a bear trap, and then she sees where they didn't. And so she gets, and I'm the youngest of 6 kids, right? So I saw my older sisters. I have 4 older sisters, and then my brother's a year older than me. So I got to see them make every mistake in the world going toward their dreams. So I just avoided those, bear traps, if you will. And so it was kind of cleaner for me. It was easier for me. At the same time, you are the youngest, you are the smallest, and you got to grind, man. You got to work your butt off to get any kind of attention. And so Lila is like that. She's the runt of the litter. She is so athletic, Ed. She so wants to win. like old school wants to win, like whatever it takes. Like not
Love
just,
that, don't we?
yeah, it's, what they say about winners is it's not so much they like winning so much is that the distaste that they have for losing is so strong that they win. And that's kind of how she is. So she works her butt off. She figured out very early that she was not going to be the tallest girl. She's not going to be 6'4" playing volleyball. She's not going to be 6'2" playing volleyball. So we decided as a family, okay, Lila, that's good for you. You're going to be 5'8", right? That's perfect. But to make up for that size difference, you got to play bigger. And that's what we came up with very early. You just got to play bigger. So she would come home and complain about, Dad, I'm not as good as that girl. She's 6'2". And I go, yeah, okay. You just have to play bigger. You have to play like you're 6'2". So that means you have to get off the ground higher than the girl who's 6'2" gets off the ground. That's called a vertical jump. You have to be faster than her. You have to jump higher than her. You have to touch your hand over the net higher than the 6'2" or 6'4" girl does. And right when we gave her that permission slip, like a dog on a pant leg, she took it. And she figured out her advantage, which was, I'm only 5'8". That's my advantage. Now I'm going to out-jump them all.
Coaching Effect Summit is not just any leadership conference. It is an annual event where high-performing leaders come to grow through research, relationships, and real coaching work. It's all happening June 11th and 12th at the beautiful Union Station in Kansas City, and it's packed with dynamic keynotes, interactive sessions, and one-of-a-kind networking opportunities, including a night at the Royals-Yankees game. This year's theme, A New Track Forward, is powered by data. Now get this, from over 500,000 coaching interactions showing what high-impact leaders are doing to drive performance. Here's what you can expect. The latest coaching and leadership research, formal and informal learning opportunities, a supportive community, and networking, and absolutely just a ton of fun. Now, our keynote speakers are not to be missed. Aaron Deal, renowned author and podcast host and founder of Improve It. Mike Buddy, who is a former director of athletics at West Point, and he is now the athletic director at Texas Christian University. Conducting the workshops, Ted Simoninger, president and CEO of Ocean Palmer and author of the world famous book, The Worry Circle. Sarah Worth, president of Excel Institute. And yes, I will be joining, facilitating a workshop. It's going to be a ton of fun. You don't want to miss this. If you want to learn more and grab a special discount, send us an email at info@themolitorgroup.com. That is info@themolitorgroup.com. Or send a text with the word summit to 719-459-6940. 719-459-6940 and text the word summit. It's funny you say this to my daughter, basketball and soccer have become her two sports. Basketball, she's decent. She's pretty good and small. But, that's the one thing we've talked about quite a bit is how that is to your advantage, how you bring them down to your size and how, what are the little things that you're going to do differently than everybody else? Anybody can shoot, everybody can handle it now, but can they defend, right? And they're willing to sacrifice their body. But it's interesting because this segues great to what we're going to talk about is, identifying the power of your personal story, right? And we talked a little bit before we started recording is where we are in our world, in our organization, in the biopharma and biotech life science spaces, we're teaching these leaders, both frontline, second line, and executives, the significance of how to coach their people and how the force multiplier in that is the relationship piece and the relationship piece they have with everybody to drive that trust and how important connection is. And to you and to your point and to what you talk about is how powerful your personal story and the role it plays in connection Can you talk about that? Like when you first, obviously you have an amazing story on episode 53, when you're kind enough to join us the first time, we talked about, after your playing career and being a playwright and starring in a one-man, show, so to speak, run to the litter, and everything that's happened since then and how your story has helped. We talk about reinventing ourselves, but I also look at you as you've evolved, right? You become what you were meant to be. How important is that personal story in the connection piece?
The dreams that I've had, the visions that I've had for my life, and the visions that I've had for my personal life or my athletic life or my parenting life, I've built those all with story, with the intimacy of story, because that really carries the day and it bonds you. The greatest thing about stories is it bonds. It puts people together. I noticed this when I did my play, when you do a show in a theater, all you're doing, you are telling a story. So the people that are in front of you that have paid a lot of money to travel and come to this theater in New York City or whatever city we're in, and there's one person up telling their story. Well, there might be 15,000 people in the audience. There might be 7. I've done both sizes. What you find out is that you tell a story and 15,000 people think they're joined at the shoulder now. Their arms are interlocked now because they're experiencing something together. Same thing goes for when it's a one-on-one. If everybody would just think back to the first date of the girl that they married or the guy that they married. Do you remember the first date? And that is always an amazing, amazing story because they ended up with this person. So we all had a lot of first dates that you didn't end up with that person, right? They were bad, you dumped them, they broke up with you, it didn't work out, whatever. But there's only one person that first date did work out, right? Like the Super Bowl. The reason that happens is because of the story of these two people on that date. How one told their story, the other told their story, and somehow these stories just brought them together. Here's the greatest thing about everybody's personal story, how powerful it is. For one, I just think it's the most valuable thing that we all have, and I think it'll pay you the most. It is the most valuable, meaning it pays you the most. It also gives you the most influence. It also gives you the biggest voice. It also gives you the most trust because it's personal and it's intimate. And that's such a lost art in our society. So the minute you share your story, and just so everybody knows, I'm not talking about the story of you being on top of Mount Everest. That's not the story. The story is, why did you even go? What doubts did you have? Did you almost die? Were you afraid? That's the story. It's not that you got to the peak. It's that you attempted it and you were scared and you overcame your fears, or a friend died. Something happened. Great stories. The most valuable stories that we have, Ed, come from pain, not from success. They come from the most painful times in our lives. One of the stories I tell is one of the biggest pains I ever had in my life. Probably the greatest pain I ever had in my life was when I was 10 years old and got cut from the Little League team. Do you know how much pain that brought me? So much that I became a pro athlete because of it. That's true of Michael Jordan. That's true of Tom Brady. It's all the same story. It's that they were cut. They were sent home. They were rejected pursuing their dreams at a young age. And so guess what they did? They decided this is not going to happen to me ever again. And they went all the way to legendary status because of it. Well, all of us have that story in us because we've all felt pain. Well, now you guys, you know how we try to hide all that pain and bury it? Well, now it's our most valuable asset. That's why I have people use it.
And you talked about in your book, there is no plan B for your A game. right? Incredible book. And you said something on our last podcast, and it's in here, that vulnerability is the new credibility,
Mm-hmm.
or that vulnerability is credibility. I forget the exact quote. I believe it was the new credibility. And we talk often with our leaders about being authentic, and we break that down into honesty, right? Being with yourself and with others, integrity, where your word is gold. You do what you say you're going to do, when you're going to say you're going to do it, how you say you're going to do it to the best of your ability. But the magic comes from that vulnerability piece, not feeling like you have to be a superhero. Like you understand the power of asking questions and sharing shortcomings and, collaborating with others to get to, but vulnerability inside of your story. How do you help people? Because I think this is important to not only embrace it, but to not get stuck on it.
Now, when I use the word vulnerability, you guys, I don't mean crying. Some people mistake vulnerability for crying. I don't care if you cry or not. I don't care if you're emotional or not. Here's the most attractive thing about a human being. It's what we're all driven and attracted to, is their vulnerability. And let's just break this down. What does that mean? Here's what it means. There's a great quote, and I can't remember who said it, but they said this: the world was not created by great men. The world was created by a demanding situation. And a great man or a great woman then rose to the occasion during this demanding situation, and that is heroic. And that's a great story. And that is all people are attracted to. So, if you put yourself in a demanding situation, you don't have to worry about vulnerability anymore. Do you know why? Because you're going to be vulnerable. Here's how I would do it. I would make a commitment that you want to be the best at something in the world. So I want to be the best playwright since Shakespeare. That's a great sentence to say. I want to be the greatest stage performer of my time. I want to be the greatest safety to ever walk the planet. The minute you do that, people think, oh, Bo, that's cocky, that's conceited, that's too much. No, here's what you just guaranteed yourself: a life that is demanding everything you've got. And the minute that life demands everything you got, who's now vulnerable? You. You're vulnerable. You don't have to worry about vulnerability ever for the rest of your life. All these storytellers, all these speakers are hearing that vulnerability is the new credibility. So I got to be vulnerable. So I'll cry. No. That's a result. That's fake. That's what politicians sometimes do. That's why we don't trust them. Here's what I want you to do. Make a commitment in your life that's going to require all of you. And as soon as you do that, guess who's got a story all of a sudden? Guess who's vulnerable all of a sudden? And guess who just became very valuable? Because guess what? You have put your voice out there. You have made a commitment. It is public. People know about it. They know when you fail. And most of the years that you're heading toward this dream that you have is all wrought with failure. So you just keep getting back up on the horse, failure after failure after failure. That's what I call valuable, the most valuable person on the planet. So we're trying to skip that part. This day and age, they're trying to skip that part and just go straight to the top of Mount Everest. It doesn't work that way, you guys. No one cares about somebody on the top of Mount Everest. No one cares if you're the best quarterback in the NFL unless they know where you came from, where you started from.
One of the things you talked about when you wrote this book, right, was self-discovery as you wrote the book. And as you work with all these amazing people to write their stories, and you talk about, let's say, true to Everest for a second, right? We stare at the mountaintop and think, God, I'm never going to get there. Like instead of reflecting back on where we were and where we are now and how far, going from base camp A to base camp B and how far we've come and what the story was to get us there.
Yeah.
Talk about some of the amazing experiences you've had with folks in the self-discovery process and the aha moments for some, and maybe even spiritual awakening, whatever it is, while they're crafting their personal stories.
Yeah. It's so funny. Everybody, I'll give you a little exercise to do right now. Think of the people that you admire. And I know that may not be a lot. That may be just a handful. Like you really look up to them. You're like, damn, they might be a different gender than you. They might be a different color than you. It doesn't matter. You just look at them and you go, I admire that. What? And the thing that you admire about them, if you look at a guy like Tom Brady, you don't admire, I don't go, God, he's really, good looking quarterback, even though he is. And wow, he's a great quarterback. I don't look at him like that. I look at it where he started and how the hell he got there. That's what I admire. What does it take for a guy who's unathletic, who's like last choice of anybody, and is not a golden boy? He's nothing. He's forgotten.
Muscle mass.
He's 7th string at the University of Michigan. 7th string. I don't even know they had 7 quarterbacks on a team. My son, in high school, he's 4th string quarterback. Now, his dream is to be the top quarterback in the NFL, right? How do I know that that's actually predictable and is going to happen when he's 4th string? Because that's the story of every great quarterback in the NFL. They all have the same exact story. They're never superstars in high school. They're never the best athlete. They're never the golden boy. They're forgotten. They're rejected. They're dumped by the prom queen. Those are the people who build a muscle of failure and rejection and know that they're still upright and still walking forward. That's you and me too. But we try to skip that part. Don't skip it. I know only because my son in high school was a 4th string quarterback. So people would come up to me and go, Bo, Axel's a 4th string quarterback in high school. How's he ever going to fulfill on his dream? I go, you watch. Because that's part of the process. They don't get it because they've never been around a quarterback with a dream. Well, I happen to grow up with quarterbacks with dreams like that, and I know exactly how it looks. And it always looks the same every single time. My roommate in college, Kenny O'Brien, my first roommate of my life, Tony Eason, are both no one recruits. Nobody recruits out of high school. Not one. No one knows about them. No one's heard of them. Their dreams are to be top NFL quarterbacks. Cut to, they go to college eventually. They struggle. First round picks, New England Patriots, New York Jets. In a quarterback class that had John Elway in it, Dan Marino, Jim Kelly, Todd Blackledge, my brother and my roommate. It all looks the same, you guys. Now, think about your life of building this business that you're building. Well, you're just going through that 4th string period. You might be taking a bloody nose, but that's how we know where you're going to end up. This has been my experience, you guys, story after story after story, and it doesn't matter your occupation. I'm just using this quarterback position because you have better odds of being a U.S. Senator. There's 100 of them. There's only 32 NFL quarterbacks, right? So you got a better chance of being a senator than being an NFL quarterback. So I'm just giving you the odds that we're up against and what it looks like 4 years prior to that happening. It looks really bad. Everything looks really bad. And no one wants you, and you're just unappealing and unattractive. But you keep your head down, and you stay loyal to the one thing that you should be loyal to, which is your dream, which is your vision of your life. Ed, every client that I work with, and it doesn't matter their occupation, this is what's so crazy. If they're really good, if they're really world-class, man, what a story it is for them to get there because no one could have guessed it from the beginning. Nobody. And that's what makes a great story. And that also equals vulnerability because they've put themselves in a demanding situation every day, in and out, all day, every year, for several years. A demanding situation. What does that give you? What does that give you? That gives you a life of leadership, and you could face struggle and still walk through it. That gives you this winning resolve that you're going to win despite being 4th string. You just don't care. when you fight a good boxer and they've been hit before, when you hit them, they don't care. They're expecting it. But when you hit a boxer who's unseasoned, not used to being hit, and you hit him in the face and they go like this, oh, wait a second, I didn't sign up for this. This hurts. I'm bleeding. Look at me. And now they're doing this and you're punching them again. That's what our world looks like now. No one's expecting to have a hard time. But your most valuable, the thing that's going to pay you the most is taking those steps while you have a bloody nose and continue to fight back. Those are the only people who are guaranteed leadership. People are going to follow them because they know how to get shit done. They know how to make things happen. And they're resolved. They're resolute about they're going to get there come hell or high water. That's powerful. Every story that I love, every person that I love, Ed, has basically the same story, and it's kind of similar to the ones I've been telling.
Point, right? The resolve. We talked last time about something I talk to my clients about a lot is this. We always, athletes, business people, whatever your point of reference is, whatever your endeavor is, we talk about sacrifice a lot. Like, what are you willing to give up? But I think the real thing, and you just spoke to it, is how much are you willing to endure?
Yeah.
Like, what's your endurance? Like, how long are you going to actually stay the course? Can you talk about the significance of maybe not enjoying every single thing that you have to do inside the process, but really falling in love with the growth, with the improvement, with the micro wins, right? With the incremental steps that you take.
Yeah. I mean, that's what you got to fall in love with that part of it. You have to fall in love with you getting better. No one likes to practice, right? No one wants to go to rehearsal and practice. If you're a football player, they've done this statistic. 94% of your year, 94% of the hours in that year are spent preparing for a game. 94% of all your energy, your every day, 6% is actually playing the game. So think about your life this way. We've got it flipped upside down now. People just want to play games, right? They don't want to prepare for the game. That's why the mediocrity of the game, it just kind of ticks down. Where the football tends to tick up typically because there's so much preparation that has to go through with it because you can only play one game a week for 6 months. Baseball, they play every day. Basketball, every day. So they don't get the hours to prepare like football does. If I was a basketball player, if I was a baseball player, if I was a writer, I would treat my practice and preparation, I would start to flip the hours on that and get this preparation mode. And that is what you've got to fall in love with. You don't have to fall in love with it feels good because it doesn't feel good. You have to fall in love with that grind that no one else will do. Whether that's waking up at 5 a.m. and being out there on the cold grass or in the snow running. You got to fall in love with you're the only person out there. And it always pays off. Here's the problem. Nobody falls in love with that stuff. Almost none of us do. The people that do, you and me admire. We admire them because they have a story to tell, because they've actually run the miles. If they skip those miles, they got no story to tell, and they can't reach a level of admiration. They'll never reach that because they always quit. They always quit when it snows. Like their training is predicated on the weather. Well, what if my preparation is based on the weather? Well, I'm not going to get anything done. Oh, it's too hot. Oh, it's too cold. Oh, it snowed. Oh, the wind is up. I got to cancel. That's what people do with their lives. Well, you can't prepare. You got to prepare come hell or high water. That's how this thing goes. But look, you guys, that club that I'm talking about, that little group of us that fall in love with that's a very small group. If you decide that that's how you want your life to go, guess where you end up? The very top. Now, if you don't want to make any sacrifices. If you want to go to the prom and miss a game, or if it snows outside, you're not running that day. If you want to take that road, that's a lot of traffic on that road, and it never ends well. It ends with regret. The guys that I went to high school with, the guys I went to college with, bigger, better than me, right? Bigger athletes, better than me, right? And once I got in the pros, they always would come to my games in the pros. And they would just look at me and shake their head and go like this: how did you get here? I was better than you. I was bigger than you. How did you get here? And I would just have to sit there and go, I know you were bigger. You were better. And I don't have the heart to tell them, but I'll tell you that they just tried to skip they went to the prom instead of training. They went to parties while I was training. I was in a film room studying while they were out, whatever they were doing. And hour after hour after hour after day after month after month, but they're the ones who were bigger and better. They're the ones who regret their life. And I'm the one who does not regret my life, because I got all I could out of this, instrument that I have, my body.
Ways to dry. And it's interesting, because one of the things I say to my daughter, she'll wake up like, Dad, I just don't feel like working out today. Well, this is the day you have to do it the most. And it's also the day you'll walk out of the gym and you'll say, that's the best workout I've had in a month.
Yeah.
Right.
It's
funny. And it's funny how that happens, right? Now, speaking to helping people craft their personal story and working on their speech and working on their delivery, how much focus, because I think people worry often about the return on their investment. Is what I'm doing really going to be worth it?
Yeah.
Right. And I think we see it. Is it a generational thing? I don't know. I'm not here to argue that, but you do see it. It shows up in the business world. I'm sure it shows up with the people you work with. But how much time do you spend on not so much validating, but nudging them and pushing them to understand that preparation is a separator? Like the willingness to put in the hours to get on stage and to not just survive it, but to just crush it. Right.
Yeah.
And to not just walk off feeling good about yourself, but for people to walk out them feeling good about themselves and the possibility that they have ahead of them.
Yeah, it's a great question. No one really asks me that anymore, but I'll say this, Ed: rehearsal for a speech. So the statistics say that the scariest thing of the world, the hardest thing, the thing they don't want to do the most, is publicly speak. Everyone's afraid to speak in public. I am too. They say that people would rather be in the casket at a funeral than do the eulogy for the funeral, because who's ever doing the eulogy has to speak in front of people. The lucky one is in the casket, right? Doesn't have to speak. So people have more fear of public speaking than they do of dying. Isn't that crazy? So when I hear those statistics, when I hear that, Ed, I always go the opposite direction of where the statistic says and where the culture says. So I say to myself, I want to be the best at that speaking in public thing. And just so you know, some people go, hey, Bo, I'm not a public speaker. I don't want to be a public speaker. And I always say, well, do you ever speak? And they go, well, yeah, I speak. And I go, you do? And they go, yeah, I speak. And I go, well, where do you speak? And he goes, well, at my house and at the office and over here. And I'm like, so you're speaking in public? And they're like, yeah, I speak in public. I go, so you're a public speaker. So you already are. You're telling me you don't want to public speak, but you already are. That's what you are. We all are these public speakers that don't want to be public speakers. So I say, you know what? Everybody, and this big time speakers I've seen do this, they try to wing it. People think they could wing public speaking. Well, if you're a Navy SEAL, do you think you could wing that when you're in the middle of a battle? Think you can wing that shit without any training? Well, that's how I think of public speaking. Because if public speaking is so scary, there must be something very valuable on the other end of that. if you can public speak and move people emotionally, move people, have people pass money to you or to over there, or vote for you, or watch your movie, that's a great skill to have if you're in business or you're building a family, or no matter what you're building. So I want to be great at that. So I learned from the best. I went and searched out the best at that, at being on stage. That happened to be Al Pacino, right? Al Pacino was the best stage performer of his time, and this was in 1990. So I went to Al Pacino and I said, I want what you've got. Help me. Show me. How do you do that? And this is Al Pacino, man. So he told me exactly what to do, and he wrote for like 3 hours, wrote up a plan that would have taken 15 years to fulfill. He goes, at the end of these 15 years, Bo, if you do what I tell you to do, you're probably going to be the best in the world on stage. So I did what he said. And after 15 years, I'm doing a show opening on Broadway that I'm the only person in that I wrote. And the critics are there that night, and I walk out and I do the show. And you guys, I don't want to do the show. I'm friggin' nervous as hell. I want to run into the back alley in New York City and run down and drink and, run away from what I've created. But I go out somehow, some way. I go out on stage, and I'm out on stage, and you guys, I make eye contact with a guy in like the fifth row right on the aisle. And it's Al Pacino. And I haven't seen him for 15 years, but he's at my show. Al Pacino's at my show. A guy who's never written anything and a guy who's never performed at that level before. So the key to all of that, you guys, is the rehearsals. All he told me was my butt was going to be on a stage somewhere, rehearsing, practicing. And at the end of 15 years, or it could be shorter, you're going to be standing on top of the heap. If you do that. Well, now think if your daughter's a tennis player or your son's a football player or you're a parent. It doesn't matter. Whatever it is, it's all rehearsal. It's all practice that nobody wants to do because they don't see the payoff or they want a guarantee of the payoff. Well, I can guarantee you that if you do the work that I'm asking you to do, just like I did with Al Pacino, I know exactly where you're going to end up. It's predictable as the nose, on my face. It is predictable. No one wants to do that, right? So don't complain that you have these dreams that don't come true. You're just not rehearsing. You're not practicing enough to be world-class at that thing. And so every dream that I have, I attach a story to it. And that story builds the dream. I follow the story. People are attracted to the story, so they help me. They help me if they're a nutritionist, they give me nutrition. If they're a doctor, they take my blood work. If they're a coach, they help me with speed or strength. If they're, a performance coach, they help me with that. Because everybody's attracted to somebody with a dream. Well, you have to tell the story so that they know that you have a dream, and then they attach themselves to you and they go with you. And that's how this has always worked. And that's how it works with my clients. And here's the end results. Most of them are already in business, right? They just never really thought about taking public speaking seriously and making offers to people. I teach them to do that. They do that, and then their company just really explodes. It really just grows and goes kind of nuts because they weren't using their story. Story now, given the statistics of where trust lies in our leadership these days, it's so low that all you have to do is you have to be able to share your story. And that gives you trust and intimacy, something that used to take 5 and 10 years to build. You can do it immediately now, have trust, have intimacy, and then ask them to go on a second date. Like ask them, hey, you want to work with me here? Hey, you want to go here? That's how we do it. And that's the results that we get.
I could talk to you forever. in respect of your time. And before we wrap this up, though, I know our listeners, right? And I know right now that there's many of them sitting there like, I need to know more. How can they find out more about your personal story event in La Jolla, California? Where can they find out more about the work that you do, how they can become a part of your community, right? And start to study what you teach?
With your permission, Ed, I will give them a number to text. And
Absolutely.
that number, they will automatically be sent a free story guide that they can get to work right away.
I'll put that number in the show notes too, as well. So the number that you give,
cool.
we'll go ahead and we'll put everything in the show notes for you, whatever you share.
Okay, so I'll share it now. Is that cool?
Yep, go ahead.
Okay.
That'd be wonderful.
So do this, guys. Text guide, the word guide, to this number, 323-310-5504. Text the word guide. I'm going to send you a story guide automatically. You're going to get it when you text the word guide to that number, and you can get to work on your specific signature piece that you're going to use from that point forward. Now, if some of you guys want to jump in and work with me for 3 days in La Jolla in a theater, Ed and I were talking about it before. It's really cool. It is 3 days. It is the team that taught me this and me, my wife. It's amazing, and it's very intimate. We capture your story, we physicalize your story, and we teach you how to make money with your story. Same number, same text number, but text this word, event, to 323-310-5504, and you'll get all the information for Personal Story Power, which I do in a theater in La Jolla. It's an amazing event. And once you go through those 3 days with me, belly to belly, with the coaching and the hands-on, you're off and running. It's going to be cool. So
I love it.
That's what I would give you, Ed.
And sorry to interrupt there. What we'll also do is we'll put all your social media stuff on there as well, so they can follow you. They can see the work you're doing. They can see as the story evolves. But Bo, from the heart, I can't thank you enough. It's an honor. It's a privilege. I've looked forward to this second time. And if the stars are aligned, I will see you in La Jolla in May.
Oh, can't wait to see you. That'd be great, Ed.
Oh, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.